episode 2 of Football Journals. I'm actually joined by one of my fellow Northeast Corner members, Ryan. He's going to be on the episode to speak about his earliest memories in football, really. He sent me his 1 to 11 a little while back, some interesting names in there. He's also going to be speaking a little bit about Lossiemouth, which I'm quite interested to hear about. We don't get much Highland League chat going. A little bit about Man United, maybe a bit about Celtic. Yeah, hope you enjoy. Welcome, Ryan, to episode 2 of the Football Journals.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
Long trek for me, but...
Bit different this one because we're normally both this side of the mic.
I've never been on this side of the table.
Yeah, strange.
I've always,
So
new experiences.
You are the guest today. I said to you before, I was going to give you 6 questions and we're just going to go straight in off the bat. How good a football player were you when you were younger?
Do you know what? Can I bring up my memorabilia just now?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. So I said it was going to be something a bit unique. Let's see if I can get this in frame. So this is a picture of, I'll let you hold this as well.
Yeah.
Not like it's a valuable thing, like obviously it's just like, so that was me, and do you remember Soccer Sevens?
Absolutely.
Right. That was me, I think at 10 years old.
Wow.
And my face is like absolutely ridiculous, and someone's like photoshopped it in the right hand corner as well. So cheers for that. But that was the first time that I ever went to Soccer Sevens, right? Because you usually just played football with your mates, like in the school, after school, because like the gates were never closed, you know, like security is always in Murray. But that was when I first attended Soccer Sevens. So they would have all these teams that are named after like big teams in Europe. So I think it was Inter Milan, that one. Okay. There was like Ajax and Bayern Munich. Anyone you can think of, they had the... It was never like English or Scottish teams either, though. I think that was maybe to just like avoid any kind of trouble. But it was like teams from around Europe.
Yep.
And that was like the first time that I'd guess I played as part of like an actual team. Like I played in school, I played with my mates.
How old are we talking?
10 years old, something like that, maybe 11. And in terms of how good of a football player I was, right, I got told to play up front. Right, and I would describe myself, if I had to base it off of one other football player, as Ruud van Nistelrooy, right?
Sweet.
Not the same level, obviously, as our careers both panned out in the end. But I was someone that was good in and around the box.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? Like I seemed to have decent positional play if I was to look so deep into it. I couldn't score for outside the box for shit. Do you know what I mean? Like I'd never score a free kick or anything.
Left-footed, right-footed?
Right-footed.
Did you have a left foot?
No, it was gone. There was no Gareth Bale energy within me.
Because as somebody who's just started recently coaching kids around about that age, I found that kids who can play with both feet are normally the best kids. Like
what's the word for that again?
Ambidextrous.
Yeah.
I'm trying to teach my own 3-year-old to play with both feet just now. But it's interesting you're actually mentioning Soccer Sevens. It's strange. We're going to go back to things, but I got emailed yesterday about from my old local primary school asking to help get a Soccer Sevens team started up. So it's interesting how these things collide. What kind of level were the kids around you compared to you, would you say?
So there were some absolute ballers in like the other teams, right? You could tell. I remember, I don't know if he watches, he has what, I've seen him out at the pub now and again, I've seen him like the post now and again, but a guy called Jared Duncan, who's a sesher more these days, but was a fucking really good football player, especially around that time, and he was, I can't remember what team he was playing for, but he played, I think he scored like 5 against us or something like that.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of good, like, I'm trying to remember, there was a team that played in like navy blue, because the colours don't represent like the actual teams. Like we look like we're playing for Celtic circa 2001, let alone fucking in Milan there.
It's a good strip, I'll give you that. I'll give you that.
But I can't remember, I think it was Ajax, right? I think Ajax were navy blue. Again, just doesn't make any sense, does it? But I suppose it's not really meant to make sense. I doubt there was much budget for, do we actually get them strips? No. But yeah.
Because it looks like here that, like, you've all got tops, but, like, shorts and that are your own.
Mm-hmm.
There's maybe a couple of. There's one kid I think has got a green pair of socks. The rest have got a pair of trackies on, white pair of shorts. So it was just kind of given a top, and that was it.
I would argue that was the FIFA Street era, so that was in style at the time. So, but yeah, so I think Ajax, Mark Allen, he was someone that I knew later on. He's still really into football. I don't know if he like plays for a team or anything like that, but he's in terms of his knowledge, I see him always commenting on. He's a big Celtic fan, so I see him like commenting all the Celtic results.
Yeah.
He was in there. There was a few other players, but yeah, you could tell that there was people that were going for casual, leisurely, social time, and there was people that were there like. And I know this sounds a bit ridiculous because of Soccer Sevens was not really meant to be as serious as like even what you do down at the Elgin Boys Club and stuff like that, right? But there were some people there that if like there was a Ross County Scout or whatever, you would see them being like, "Oh, we'll come back and have a look at them again," you know.
Yep.
But funny story, right? So I played up front, and there was one game that we played against. I think it was Ajax, right? So I was kind of like shitting myself. I'm never good at pressure ever, right? And I was like, we're probably going to get beat by them, right? It wasn't like I was thinking, oh, we've got a chance here or whatever, but they had a centre back that was big. Like he was really, for a 10, 11, I don't know how far it went up to, I think it was 10, 11, maybe 12 at the oldest, was huge. And he seemed like a bit of a loose cannon, right? Like he seemed like someone.
Would you be a kind of kid that was intimidated by that?
Oh yeah, 100. Yeah. Oh yes, I'm intimidated by now. But the manager said, right, I was hoping he would like have like some miracle change of heart and play me at the back, which is so strange because that's like the opposite of what most kids think in it. Like when you're young, everyone wants to play up front.
Yeah,
we only see goal scoring, right? That's why no one appreciates a centre back until they're like in their teenage years at the very earliest, right? So I was hoping I'd like be play at the back so I'd have to like come up against them. And then so he read out the team sheet. He just said we were playing, like, and he was like, "Yeah, Ryan, you're up front." I was like, "Shit." So me in like my kind of defiant bullshit fashion, I guess, decided that I was just going to play centre back anyway. Yeah. So I guess we formed like this five at the back, right? And I could hear him shouting and I was just pretending I couldn't hear him. And I kind of got my comeuppance in the end, right? Because he went mental at me at half time. He was like, "Why the fuck are you not playing up front?" I was like, we need to defend more and stuff. Didn't want to say the real.
Explaining yourself.
Didn't want to say the real reason. Obviously, like, I'm actually scared of one of the older boys at the back. But I got my comeuppance right because they had an attack and was defending the box again. Totally ignored what I got rallied at half time for, and the guy was defending. That was the defender that came up for like a corner or something like that. And it felt him at the edge of the box, and I had to close him down, and he fucking volleyed it straight off my dome.
Oh man,
mate, brutal.
Nothing worse as a kid.
So I think that's the well, as a kid at least anyway, it's the closest I've ever come to having concussion, and I probably did, because it was full strike. So my fear, you can't outrun your demons, is basically the moral of that story. I should have probably played up front, and we wouldn't have lost 7-2. We would have maybe lost 3-2. Do you know what I mean?
I played as a goalkeeper at that age, and I remember getting smashed in the face with a ball. And I just remember all I could hear. I'm lying on the ground. I'm pretty sure I was in tears. You are at that age, you're almost knocked out, and all I could hear was, "Yeah, but you saved it. Yeah, but you saved it." And I'm like, lying there half dead, can't hear anything apart from like murmurs and probably concussed. But yeah, no, it's good. Okay, second question. Favorite player ever?
Oh, that's a good one. Oh,
it doesn't have to be the best player ever.
No, just my favorite. Just
your favorite player ever. Player that you thought, I just loved watching that player play football.
I would say the first one that was my favourite of all time. My first favourite that got me into football and I watched consistently, but I won't because they're a wrong in now. So, it rhymes with Migs.
Okay.
But I would probably say, if I was to say now, Ronaldinho. Yeah. Just another planet. Like Messi and Ronaldo, Cristiano Ronaldo, are obviously undoubtedly the two best players of all times in terms of stats and numbers and achievement and all that. But Ronaldinho was just from another fucking planet.
Yeah,
literally, just a strange, unique talent that definitely had like a peak couple years and then just kind of fucked it off. Really, didn't he? Just kind of went from after he had that fallout with Pep, he went to AC Milan, had a good season there. And
It was
then
okay.
Just kind of went and played back
He
in
was
Brazil.
there at the same time as Ronaldo as well.
Yes.
Which was an interesting one because on
Kaka
paper that team looked unreal, but just didn't quite gel. That was after the kind of glory days of AC Milan. We're going to talk a little bit about like their 03, 07, 08 period, but that was just, I think, slightly after, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think that probably 08, 09, because Guardiola had booted him and Samuel Eto'o out the same kind of season, didn't he? One went to Inter and one went to AC.
It was around about the time Ibrahimovic came in as well, and then kind of we know how that ended. And it was crazy how that ended, because I think Ibrahimovic had about 30 odd goals by January, February time, which any other team in the world, that's your top player, but because Messi's a unique talent he never got a chance in that team.
Well, that's the thing, right? Because he was insistent, like they just won the treble with Messi playing false nine, and then obviously Ibra comes in, target number 9, a complete forward really, right? Could do pretty much everything.
Anything you want,
and he let you know about it. But I remember I think what was it Ibra said, because he's played for both Mourinho and Pep, which is quite a rarity, right? Because they're like polar opposites in terms of coaching style. And they asked him like, what's the main difference between them? And he said something like, Mourinho is like a great manager and Guardiola's not even a man or something. You know what I mean? So like there was obviously massive heat there. But
that's a huge statement to make, considering. Well, as you say, that's the 2 greatest managers of the modern era.
Yeah, the last 25 years for sure. Yeah. Ancelotti in there as well.
You throw Ancelotti in there, but he's also part of the previous era. You know, he seems to do well in the modern era with old tactics.
Yeah.
And it's probably why he's one of my favourite managers.
Very pragmatic.
Yeah. I enjoy Ronaldinho. Because I coach kids, I always tell the kids, play with a smile on your face, enjoy your football. If you enjoy your football, even if you get beat at the end of the day, you know you've done a little trick, you've taken it past someone, that's better for them. You make me this a bit closer.
No, yeah. That's fine with it is, to be honest, mate.
Okay, next question. Most memorable game of football?
Again, that's a good one. I'll go with 2, because there was one in person and there was one obviously via the telly and that. I think probably the most memorable one, and this is going back probably to Ronaldinho again, is I think I mentioned this when we spoke to Dominic, that Ronaldinho got this to Bernabeu for a standing ovation. That still blows my mind to this day. I go back and watch it on YouTube all the time. I just think the amount of heat that is behind that rivalry politically. Yes. Right? Like I said, the only one that compares to it's the Old Firm.
And I think maybe Boca River Plate.
Yeah, like South America teams. Yeah, 100%. But that moment, because I was just a kid seeing that, so I didn't really understand what was going on, but I did think, because we always seen, you knew, even as a kid, that Real Madrid, maybe not the political side of things, but you knew that they were like arch enemies, you know, they're always going for the Champions League, always going for La Liga, Copa del Rey, blah, 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 blah. But like seeing Ronaldinho do that, and it was a fucking, think about who was in that defence. You had Roberto Carlos, you had Sergio Ramos when he was a right back. I don't know, I'm tempted to say Pavon was there, maybe.
I'm going to say Pavon and maybe Salgado at right back.
And he just destroyed them.
You also had, I'm pretty sure Cambiaso was playing around.
Maybe 07 kind of time, maybe a year out. But yeah, like they had some Guti and all
Gabriel Ainsa, players like that. Big players.
Yeah.
Big players. As you say, ripped them apart single-handedly. Am I right in thinking, right, I might be thinking of a different game. Is this the same game that Messi got a hat-trick in?
No.
Messi
hadn't even really broken through yet. Yeah. This was like him. And here's the thing, this is what makes it powerful for me, is that Messi has went and destroyed Real Madrid at the Bernabeu numerous times, right? He scored a hat-trick there, the 5-1, that similar kind of goal. Do you remember the Champions League semi-final where he just ran through the middle of like Xabi Alonso and Pepe?
I do, yeah.
No standing ovation. Still arch enemy, still a little devil.
Do you think that's a Ronaldo factor? Because at the time of Ronaldinho, Real Madrid didn't have their big star. They had maybe Raul at the time, who was on his way out by this point.
I think the rivalry became so heated in so many ways because you had Ronaldo, Messi, Pep, Jose. You know, there were so many factors to it. So maybe there was a bit more bite. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure there was like some big news about Catalan independence at the time as well, so maybe tensions
Yeah.
were more high on that front as well.
Get that.
But I don't know, like there was just something unique about the Ronaldinho one because it silenced everyone. Like there wasn't boos and stuff like that. It was like everyone kind of, and it was a beautiful thing for me to see. Just put to the side what was going on, the kind of rivalry, and then just stood and applauded someone for doing something incredible, you know.
Yes.
And that lives forever. That.
Yep. Your local one, he says one you've seen in person as well.
I think it Lossy versus Turriff.
Is this in Lossy?
It was in Lossy Grant Park, yeah. I think we were either 3-0 down or 3-1 down, 2 goals in the last 5 minutes or last 7 minutes, something like that. Never heard a roar in Grant Park like it or since. But yeah, that was a big one because it was literally like last kick of the game. Do you know what I mean? And I think you see these things on TV, you think, oh wow, that must be amazing. But actually, I know it's like maybe not the same kind of level or whatever, but that kind of crowd reaction translates down to all levels of football, not just obviously like your Premier Leagues or your SPLs, even. You know. Yeah.
No, good answer, mate. Current favourite player. Who do you think? Who would you watch? I'm going to change that question as the episodes go on, but who would you sit down to watch a player over a game? You think, oh, they're playing, I want to watch that. Because for me just now, it's Haaland. Like, I just, especially when I look at some defences and I see some guys lining up against him, I think, oh, he's going to have fun tonight, you know. And it's not that he does much off the ball, but when the guy's on the ball, he's an absolute monster. And I like the absolute powerhouse of him. That's my favourite player to watch just now. I know you're going to be different because you're a Man United fan.
Yeah. So with respect, I will not be saying
no,
Haaland.
No, absolutely
but
not.
I can understand the choice.
Current favourite player to watch?
Do you know, I'm quite a big Bundesliga watcher, and I know he's not there now, but I'd probably have to say Jude Bellingham, and then look at what he's doing at Real Madrid at the moment. So I'd probably go Jude Bellingham. But also, it kind of tortures me knowing that like he nearly joined United.
He did. He was very close.
Fantastic player though. So yeah, I would say Jude Bellingham, but I've had loads throughout the years. Like I go through like eras. So like from obviously like 2007 to 2010, Cristiano Ronaldo, because who wasn't watching him at that time?
Has Messi ever been a favourite for you?
Of course. Like seeing him at that Barcelona side at 10, 11, that's still the greatest football team I've ever seen, because it came up against not a good Man United side, but a powerhouse in the terms of the manager could make average players elite. Do you know what I mean? And they just flattened United that night. So.
I've got a very for one of the greatest, because I got asked this question a while ago, what's one of the greatest teams you've ever seen? And I've got quite a controversial choice for it. And I honestly think Chelsea 04-05 is one of the best teams I've ever seen, because they went into the Premier League when you had a high-flying Arsenal, a high-flying United. Liverpool weren't doing so bad at the time, and they shut down everyone. They had that league won by Christmas.
They were the first team to break 90 points, weren't they?
Yeah. And they didn't do it with good, silky football. They just knew how to play, knew how to win games, shut down games afterwards. I seen a meme recently when it was it's John Obi Mikel coming off the bench, and it was when you knew this guy was coming on, you knew it was staying 1-0. You know, that's a game changer. That's it shuts down the game.
God, I remember Stamford Bridge. I think United went there 10 years running and didn't pick up a single point.
Yeah,
I used to hate, especially around that time, because you just knew you were getting beat. Do you know what I mean?
Do you remember the Champions League semis with Liverpool and things like that? They were great games, like
4-4 in that.
Yeah, the ghost goal from Garcia and a lot of controversy. Okay, last 2 questions for you, Ryan. Best player you've seen in the flesh?
Oh,
so you have to have been at the game.
Yeah. Do you know what? I think it would have to probably be like a Legends match or something, because there's been a few Legends teams that have obviously came up the road, and I've mainly obviously been at Grant Park, so it's the one that I've had the most experience of. I've been to a couple kind of local grounds and stuff like that, but Grant Park's obviously the one that I've attended most.
Yep.
Just because it's like geographically the closest. But yeah, probably I think Rangers Legends came up, Celtic Legends maybe came up one time as well. I've got a feeling did Ali McCoist play in that Rangers Legends side?
No, I've seen him playing Legends games, and he could still play now. Ali McCoist,
Yeah.
like he's fit.
Yeah, I would probably say, because I'm pretty sure he did play, and there was a good goalkeeper as well. In terms of like Lossy, probably Biscuits. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that name. It's funnily enough, me and Jamie were speaking about this on an episode a few months back, or maybe actually just at the end of last year. That Lossy's kind of claim to fame in terms of football was a football player called Stuart Imlach.
Yes,
Street named after him and all sorts. Has a Scotland cap, has a FA Cup winners, had an FA Cup winners medal at Nottingham Forest. Obviously, I think he's passed away now.
Yep.
But he is one of Jamie's mates, and someone that I got on with really well. I've got a lot of time for this guy, Nicky Campbell, and that's Biscuits' younger brother, and that it's also filtered down because Bailey, who's Nicky's younger brother, also now plays for Lossy, in the same position and stuff. And like I was last year when I went to one of the home games where we beat Nairn 5-1. Bailey's like, again, just it was almost kind of like watching Biscuits. Do you know what I mean? Like it's just very similar. Ran the channels very well, got in behind constantly, proper good presser of the ball. So yeah, I'd probably say Biscuits because that was like my earliest memories of Lossy. But in terms of general, probably Ali McCoist in that late Legends game.
Yep.
And I've got a lot, to be honest, I got a lot of time for Ali McCoist. I was a boyhood Celtic fan and stuff
Great
like that.
Commentator as well.
Yeah, great pundit.
Yeah, he's really good. As a Celtic fan, I've got a lot of time for Ali McCoist. Like I really do. He's very truthful as well. You know, he'll give you an honest opinion. Okay, last question. Have you ever met a professional football player?
God, that's a good question. I think I might have met one down in. Oh, do you know what?
I've had a few pints with Andy Gorham.
Yeah, I remember you saying because he was Elgin City goalkeeper. Oh, he used to come in the Beecher, so yeah, technically, yeah.
I've had a few
technically.
I've genuinely stood by Andy Gorham, had a few, and you know what? I got slagged off by somebody at my work for it because he's anti-Rangers. He's a big Aberdeen fan. You know how deep that rivalry goes.
It's worse than the Old Firm.
Yeah. And he was like, "Oh, you like?" I was like, "Mate, honestly, he was a really nice guy, and he gave me a lot of time. And he doesn't have to. He probably gets asked 100 times a day about Scotland games or Old Firm games or that. But he gave me time a day. I was only chatting him for 10, 15 minutes. But he was really nice. Like, have you ever met a pro football player?
So he used to come in the Beecher. So technically, I've met Andy Gorham as well.
Yep.
But there is one I don't know. Because I can't be sure on this. There's a potential. Do you know what? This is hilarious because if it was him, it's hilarious because of how bad I speak about him now, right? But I went on holiday to Blackpool about maybe 10, 11 years ago. And it was the summer that Phil Jones had signed for Manchester United, right? And you know how he had the highlights in his hair and he was actually good at the time. And there was someone in this arcade. There was the spitting fucking image of Phil Jones. And to this day, because
he seems like the kind of guy to be in an arcade as well.
Well, because I looked up where he's like born in that, and I think it's Preston. I was like, that's not that far from Blackpool. It could have been Phil Jones. Fuck knows why he's just went and signed like 70k a week at Man United or whatever he's been offered, and he's in the arcade like in Blackpool. But yeah, potentially Phil Jones.
Yeah.
And I think I was so nervous because like, what if it's him? Do you know what I mean? Like, what am I going to do? Like, I feel like a bit of a dick going and asking for an autograph, or hesitant that someone's going to be a dick to me for asking for like an autograph or a picture or something like that. So I never said anything other than he was on the machine that I was wanting to use.
Yeah.
And then he just moved. So I potentially met Phil Jones, which is fucking hilarious because the amount of rants I've had about that guy over the last 10 years has been.
Yeah, he's had a colourful United career, let's just say. There was word of him coming to Celtic recently, and I was like, oh no.
I was saying to one of my mates, I was like, I think it's so fucking embarrassing the send off we gave him.
I agree with that, yeah.
It's like he had won us 5 Premier League titles. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And they were like giving him plaques and everything. I was like, you do realise this dude's been injured for 10 years?
He was a dud. It's a good foray on to our next, but okay. So I'm interested to hear a few people's answers with that question. Like, let's talk about your teams. Lossy and Man United. It says we're potentially going to speak about Celtic, but I'm more interested here about the first two.
Okay.
Tell us about your association with Lossy and how long kind of you've been going to games.
So it first started. The first time I went to Grant Park was actually to watch the school football team because they were playing New Elgin or something like that. And they played at Grant Park, right? So we thought as like school kids, this would be cool as fuck because usually it's either the playing fields or the school playgrounds or whatever that people are having these games when the school leagues and all that. Which I don't know if the primary schools still have school leagues, but that was like a really big thing back in the day.
Yeah.
Like obviously people's parents came and watched, but a lot of like people that attended school anyway used to come down and support like the fucking school teams whenever they're playing all the way from primary 4 up to primary 7. So they were playing New Elgin. So that was the first time in Grant Park. That was my first time in Grant Park, but it wasn't the first time watching a game at Grant Park because if anyone has been to Grant Park, they know that there's a free way to watch a game and it's standing just next to those rusty fences. I mean, you have to go through a few wind bushes back in the day, but hey, it was better than paying £3 at the time, you know what I mean? So yeah, that was like my first time being in Grant Park, and then me and a few mates from school had kind of decided maybe we should go start actually watching actual, not like the school team, wasn't actual Lossy, but actual like Lossy games. So we started going like weekly. It was like our weekend thing to do, Saturday, 3 p.m. Obviously alternated weeks because whoever was playing away and home and all that kind of stuff. And I just absolutely loved it because
different local football, isn't it?
it is. It's rowdy.
Yeah.
It's rowdy. Like
you hear everything.
I have a lot of respect for Highland League officials.
Oh yes.
Because the amount of slaggings they're getting for stuff that it's not even really that bad of a decision, but they're just whatever they're doing. They're in between a rock and a hard place. You know what I mean? Like whatever
absolutely.
they do. But
and people forget these guys are only getting paid maybe 30-40 quid a game. It's not worth it.
No, I know. But like a lot of kind of, how do I say it? Like I don't want to say older generation, but like there was a lot of guys that would go in their 60s and 70s, and there's just really lots of communities go. Like I kind of opened my mind up to how many people actually went.
Yep. And
it's still healthy now because when I've been to games over the past year, I'm going to try and get down to the Scottish Cup tie the end of the month, providing obviously there's no bookings here or anything. The last one that I kind of went to was probably winter last year at some point.
Yep.
But yeah, it just started going weekly, and then as we kind of like left, well, when I aborted school pretty prematurely, but decided like just didn't really go as much. You know, there was like a period before you get into like drinking, and that becomes
absolutely.
like your kind of main like not focus, but like your main thing to do. But yeah, started going back probably last year, maybe the year beforehand. I don't get to go as frequently as I would like, mainly because we've either had like an arrangement here or when I was working as an employment worker, it was kind of my only time off and I was exhausted from just working 30 hours throughout the week or whatever on top of doing one of these and whatnot. So I've made a promise to myself that I'm going to start going more often. So I've seen that I can't remember who were playing, but Scottish Cup tie, because I always used to go to the Scottish Cup games.
Yeah. Normally a big crowd at them as well.
100%. I think the most memorable one of them for me is we played White Hill. I don't know if you're familiar with that
yes,
team.
oh yeah.
In the Scottish Cup, and I think they whacked us like 3-1 or something, but they might have won.
Am I right in thinking Whitehill they're like almost like an Aston Villa coloured kit? Yeah, because they played Elgin a few seasons ago. Are you in agreement with me that I think the local area would majorly benefit from an annual friendly between Elgin and Lossy?
Yes, I think what's wrong with football now is that kind of what's wrong with the world in a way, and I don't want to get too philosophical about it, but there is a certain concentration of power.
Yes,
and then there's everyone else, right? So rewind the clocks to 1950, 1960s even. Lossy players would be sold to Burnley, Blackburn, big clubs in England, right? There's absolutely no chance of that. No. The biggest kind of sale from Scottish football, I would say in the last, obviously you've got Kieran Tierney, that was a big one, but I would argue he was a proper kind of powerhouse of a club anyway in terms of one of the old firm.
Yep.
But the biggest one outside of that in Scotland has got to be, I think guy's name's Calvin Ramsey, the right back that went from Aberdeen to Liverpool.
Yeah.
Pretty much unheard of these days, right? But back in the day, you would see Lossy players, Elgin players go down south. My great granddad is the all-time top goal scorer for Bucky Thistle. I don't know if he's been overtaken or that at some point. I was actually meant to go to a museum. Bucky Thistle have apparently got a club museum or a little thing where they had some articles about him and stuff, because he actually went on trial to Liverpool back in like 1950 or 1949. So obviously before Liverpool became like a big Adonis of a club, right? Like, more Nottingham Forest was like the teams to go down at that point. But him and a mate went on trial from Bucky Thistle to Liverpool, and they both got offered contracts. His mate, I think his mate's name was Graham Alexander. Pretty sure it was. So he actually took them up on the offer, but my great granddad had just started a new kind of young family up in the local area. And football obviously wasn't like game changing money at that point from just working any other job at that point, which so he nearly played for Liverpool. But as of 10 years ago, if my information is still correct, he was the record goal scorer for Bucky Thistle. And do you know what? What's the maddest thing about it? He never played football till he was 18.
Crazy. Wow. That's God, there's hope for me yet. Just reached, I was 32 the other day. I never know. You never know.
But yeah, I think there's articles about him. George Calder was his name. So
nice.
I still, if Bucky Thistle, because I was meant to go with some family members that were up from Aberdeen that are like football crazy.
And
I ended up pulling out for some reason. Again, like I said, this is probably the time I wasn't going to Lossy games as much. I wasn't as much into footballs what I had been as a younger before I got back into it. But I kind of regretted not going. But I'm hoping that they've still, because even though like Lossy and Bucky Thistle are pretty arch rivals, not in any competitive way, right? We haven't beaten them like 8 years.
It's because they're two fishing towns.
Exactly. I would love to go. I'd love to go see it if they still have it. Like,
I think Bucky are on the way up just now.
100%
by the looks of things,
dominating the Highland League. And when George, my great granddad, died in the 90s, he's actually got a signed Liverpool top from the 90s side. So you've got like a young Steven Gerrard, Robbie Fowler, Michael Owen. And I think that's with that family, that kind of group of my family that was going to see the museum that day. I think they've actually got it because he left it to my granny's sister. So I'd like to have a look at that one day, even though that I'm on the other side. I've kind of noticed because like my family, my granddad and all that were like massive Rangers fans, and I was like a boyhood Celtic fan, and then I've got that great granddad that nearly played for Liverpool, and I just kind of go against the grain at anything that my family does. You know?
Well, kind of from one United to another, Man United. How did Man United come about? I'm just waiting. What kind of time we got there?
Just past the half an hour mark, but we had the 2 minutes beforehand, so we don't have to finish directly on the hour. There's like a good 5-10 minute leeway.
Yeah,
so
sweet.
It came about. So I was a boyhood Celtic fan, right, and I'd kind of gotten into Celtic through one of my best mates when I was younger, and I was like a mad Henrik Larsson fan. Who wasn't? If you were a Celtic fan at that time,
my idol growing up, my absolute idol. I'll have him in any 1 to 11 I'll ever make. Man's given me more happiness than any other football player ever. And he was also just a nice guy. You see him in his interviews and things, and he's a very humble person. Didn't think much of himself. Didn't actually think he's much of a good football player himself. But the clubs and things that he's went on, it just proves time and again.
Only time I cried at a football game as well when he came back with Barcelona and scored that fucking winning goal at Parkhead.
Do you want to know the only time I've ever cried at a football game? Sorry, I've cried twice at a football game. I cried when James McFadden scored against Scotland. I've never been that happy in my life.
He scored against Scotland?
No, scored for Scotland, sorry.
Treason.
Apologies. That one in Paris. But when Celtic got beat by Porto in the final, cried my eyes out. Yeah, absolutely cried my eyes out. I was about 10 or 11 at the time. I remember my dad giving me a big cuddle and stuff like that. But yeah, part of it's strange. He's part of my happiest time in football, and he's part of my unhappiest time in football. So it's like, sorry, carry on. Man United.
So I was like the kind of being a Celtic fan in the area. It's a big Rangers area up here, right? Like there's just no denying it. And when I say this, I'm not saying like every Rangers fan's like this, and I'm sure there's like Celtic fans that also kind of take things too far in that. But it got to the point of where I couldn't really leave the house with like wearing any kind of like Celtic top, tracksuit, whatever it may be, without getting called a certain F word to describe Celtic fans. And I never knew what it meant at the time, right? So it never bothered me. And then I think I just kind of, it's funny, I just remember coming home, I was like, still like a primary school kid at this point, and just going to my mum, and going, what does this mean? And like nearly getting the fucking face slapped off me. I was like, why the hell would you say something like that? So, well, people have been calling me when I've been out and about.
Yeah.
So I was like, the years kind of went on, I got a little bit older, I kind of realised, and I was like, I don't really want to be part of this. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was just pretty... And like, obviously it goes both ways, and I know some people just see it as banter, but like later on in life I kind of found out like I've got a lot of kind of like ancestry from Ireland, and I was like, that kind of hits me a bit deeper. Yep. Do you know what I mean? So basically I've always been a massive fan of the colour red.
Okay.
And United were the first team that I've seen that played in red. Obviously other than like Aberdeen and that, but
round about what time are we talking when this interest kind of peaked in United?
2002, 2001.
Okay, so we're talking like early Rooney years.
Yeah, that was probably one of like, I remember like one of the games that I remember the most from like, I've been watching beforehand, but one that sticks out in the mind is his hat trick against Fenerbahce, the debut.
Yep.
And that like Clive Tildesley famous quote, like, some things are just meant to be. Wayne Rooney, you know.
He was a big thing at the time. He was, like, when you look at the team, they obviously had Ronaldo at the time, but Ronaldo wasn't seen as the thing at the time. Rooney was going to be the big thing, and Ronaldo was a good player, but he wasn't going to make it to Rooney's levels.
He was at like, he obviously had ability, but his decision making was awful, right? Yeah. And then suddenly he kind of figured that out. And then Rooney got sacrificed for Ronaldo, right? They would play Rooney on the left wing because he worked harder going back, and Ronaldo, you know.
Yep.
Can I flip a question towards you, especially on the Wayne Rooney thing? Wayne Rooney is the all-time top goal scorer for England. He's the all-time top goal scorer for Manchester United.
Harry Kane recently.
Oh, Harry Kane. Yeah, sorry, yeah. But like he ended his career those two things. He still holds the Man United one.
Second highest in the Premier League history.
Exactly. Won every trophy that he could possibly win. I still think that he underachieved as a player for some reason.
Right. Okay. I've got a unique outlook on that. Rooney had played that much football by the time he was 21, 22. By the time Rooney reached 26, he was done with the game. His best years were 18 to 22. And he didn't get better as a player. He just changed as a player. He got to a certain level by the time he was about 21, 22, and he didn't progress and get better and better and better. He just changed his game. He always stayed about the same level. He went from a powerhouse striker to either a winger or attacking midfielder.
Then he kind of became the striker again when Ronaldo left.
Yep.
And then became a central midfield, number 10, I guess, towards the end.
The link almost. But I think Rooney was one of these players that was just thrown far too young, and his later career suffered because of it. Is your question, did he underachieve?
Do you think he could have been a better player?
Under a different manager, I think he would have been a different player. I don't think he could have been a better player. I think the best course of action would have let him go and score 100 odd goals at Everton, then get a big move, then maybe get a few moves. I think staying at United and being the main man at United cost him his career because there was so much pressure being so young. And also, he went into the golden generation of an England team and was expected to be the golden boy of a golden generation. I've listened to a few Rooney interviews recently, and he is of the opinion that if he didn't perform well in the tournament, that England weren't going to win the tournament. So that's a lot of pressure to put on yourself not realising that there's 10 other guys around you to help you win that tournament, but he put that pressure on himself. For somebody to do that at 21, 22, we've had people on podcasts just recently that are young and determined and things like that, but that's a whole different kind of pressure. That's 60 million people putting that pressure on you. We know that England over expect from themselves every time they go to a World Cup. He felt the brunt of it, and I don't think he really reached his potential because of it. There's too much pressure on the young guy. Look at him now. He's doing actually pretty well as a manager.
He's actually a pretty good coach, yeah.
And it's because he's had that experience. He'll probably do things different to Alex Ferguson. There's a lot of players who worked under Ferguson as a player who became managers, and I don't think a lot of them manage like Ferguson, and I think that's for good reason. And not that I still think Alex Ferguson's one of the greatest managers of all time. His management's second to none, but I think he didn't improve players. He bought players who were good and got them to a certain level, or his youth coaches would get players to a certain level. Ferguson himself didn't improve players, and I think, yes, Rooney did underachieve because of that.
So what you're talking about is like the development of players, right?
Yeah.
Where I would say that I agree that he didn't develop players, but what he did is he got the most juice out of what he was working with. Because he won titles with Johnny Evans, 38-year-old Vidic, Ferdinand, Danny Welbeck, and Tom Cleverley. What happened after you know what I mean? Johnny Evans is back at United now, funnily enough. But
what would you say? So I'm going to kind of follow us into the next bit. What would you say is United's strongest team under Ferguson? Is it the 90s team with Steve Bruce and Paul Ince and Mark Hughes? Is it the treble winning team? Is it the Ronaldo era, Rooney and Tevez? What do you think out of them three is? Because that's probably your three strongest United kind of sides.
It's the Ronaldo one.
The Ronaldo
one.
Yeah.
Because I think the game in the future...
Do you want me to give you a lineup for that?
So if I remember correctly, it's Van der Sar, Neville, or Raphael.
Nope. West Brown at right back.
West Brown at right back. Is this the Champions League final starting team?
This is the most used lineup for 08-09 for Man United.
Right, okay, so West Brown, you got Rio Vidic.
Yep.
Evra.
Yep.
Michael Carrick and Scholes.
Nope. You got Michael Carrick, you don't have Scholes. He was more used as a sub last season. Anderson.
Nani, Ronaldo.
Hargreaves.
Hargreaves. On the wing?
No, centre three was Anderson, Carrick and Hargreaves.
Right, okay.
And your front three was Rooney, Tevez, Ronaldo.
Right, and then you had like the likes of Berbatov that would come off the bench. And
Berbatov, Nani, Raphael, players like that. Scholes off the bench, Giggs off the bench. A lot of experience in that team. Do you think that is the strongest team?
Yeah.
Because I personally think the treble winning team doesn't have a weakness anywhere. Whereas I think your middle, not talking about Hargreaves or Carrick, but Scholes wasn't at his prime at this point.
No, true. But I actually think Anderson was pretty underrated. I
agree.
He was bought and called the next Ronaldinho. And that's not what his game was. You know what I mean? He didn't score. He wasn't a goal scorer most of the time. But
he's what Joe Linton does now.
Yeah. But I think as well, the future of the game is always going to be better than the past of the game because they bring better sports scientists. Like, think about the absolute jump in quality of nutrition and look at what Wenger did at Arsenal. Everyone had to copy that because of what Arsenal ended up becoming when he don't put salt in your food or whatever it was, the minute details. So I think the treble winning team at the time is probably the best team in the world.
So can you name me, right, I've got a wee fact for you here. I think I've possibly brought this up on the Northeast Corner before. Name of the treble winning team. Like, I don't have to name the team for the final because we know that Keane was banned and things like that, but name of the team, the 4-4-2 that you would associate with the treble winning team.
So Schmeichel.
Yep.
Gary Neville.
Yep.
Ronnie Johnson and Jaap Stam.
Yep.
Dennis Irwin.
Yep.
Who I think is one of the most underrated players of all time.
Criminal.
Beckham.
Yep.
Keane, Scholes, Giggs, Dwight York and Andy Cole, or Sheringham and Solskjaer, whoever was starting.
How many team times that season did that starting 11 start? Out of 50,
it wasn't many, did
games.
it? It rotated so many times, didn't it?
50, 60 games.
So I take it like your point being here, the strength and depth.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, there was no drop off, which is a good argument.
2 games that starting 11 started that whole season. mostly because of injuries. Blomqvist came in quite a lot.
Yeah.
Phil Neville came in quite a lot for Dennis Irwin, who was kind of getting to the latter half of his career by this point.
Nicky Butt.
Raymond van der Houw, Solskjaer and Sheringham, where it was because he played two strikers, he needed that 4 for the depth. I think Solskjaer's criminally underrated as a player as well. The importance of some goals. I remember one game he came on and scored 4 as a substitute, and he came on 60 minutes.
Nottingham Forest, because Dwight York was taken off on a hat trick.
Unreal, that's crazy, man. Okay, that's interesting because people I don't know if it's because we maybe got like 5 years between us. We rate it slightly different. Obviously, I don't rate the 94 team as much, like the European Cup winners against Barcelona in 92, 93. Probably because I didn't see much of the team. Quality players in there, you got Brian Robson and things.
I would probably say the 99 team is probably the most complete team, and it's probably because it didn't have a star player.
Yeah.
So the 94 team had Cantona, the other side of that 08, 09 team had Ronaldo, right? Which were arguably two of the best players in the world at the time. With the 99 one, you couldn't pick someone out and be like, that was the best player in the world at the time. You know what I mean? It was a very cohesive, complete unit.
Yeah.
And to be, sometimes people...
Do you think they win that Champions League with Cantona? Because obviously they played a different system with Cantona.
I don't know, like Cantona was...
Because he left the season before.
Yeah. I don't know, because Cantona was like a loose cannon, wasn't he?
Did you hear that Fergie waited a month for him to come back? Just waited every day, hoping he would come back.
Yeah, but to be fair, it was like, he was a special talent, right?
Yep.
And it's funny as well, some of the stories you hear about him, like they were told turn up in club blazers and he would turn up in jeans and a cravate and stuff like that.
It's the one where he kicks the fan is what Fergie says to him. You can't be doing that, son.
But the thing is, like, people only see that, they never realise that he got spat at.
Yeah.
And then when he came back and scored that winning goal in the FA Cup final against Liverpool, there were like 20 fans trying to do the same thing to him as he was going to get, you know what I mean? Like, spitting at someone's assault, innit? Like,
it's one of the lowest forms of anything, man.
Like, and at the end of the day, the fan never really got hurt, did he? Just kind of skiffed him, winded him for a second. But if you're spitting at people, I would argue you deserve that kind of treatment. So,
it's weird that we're talking 07, 08 Man United, because this is kind of like a golden age, and I'm only realising this when I'm doing this research for this podcast of football. You have obviously we spoke about the Barcelona team. Another team you mentioned was 03 to 07, 08 Milan. So I'm going to give you can you give me the 11?
So Dida.
Yep.
Cafu.
Yep.
Stam was probably in there as well.
Stam's back in there again, yeah.
Nesta.
Yep.
Maldini.
Yep. That's your front back 5.
And then you had Pirlo, Serdov.
Yep.
Kaka.
Yep.
Shevchenko.
Yep. You're missing a central midfielder and a striker.
Oh, Gattuso.
Yep.
And there's another striker, you said?
Yeah.
It wouldn't have been Crespo then, because he was only
It
there.
was actually.
Crespo.
He had more than an Inzaghi, and that surprised me. Because I thought Inzaghi would have been like, but Inzaghi, when I looked into it, and I sat in about 4 hours of research for this, was used more as a sub, and he was the guy that they used when they needed a goal, and he was brought on, and 9 times out of 10 he scored. Like,
Crespo was a Chelsea player, wasn't he? And he was on loan at Milan, and then he went back to Chelsea. Speaking of the Milan teams, I've never seen such a rivalry where so many players play for both.
It's because they share the same stadium.
Yeah.
I think that's got a lot to do with it. I think that's changing as well, aren't they? They're going to separate stadiums. But that team is unbelievable.
Yeah.
How does that get on against an 08, 09 United team?
Well, I guess we kind of got a preview of it because they knocked and like fucking destroyed United in that San Siro one. Yeah. One of my favourite players of all time, him.
Just how good was he? I think he's another one that was underrated.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think obviously the Real Madrid move didn't really work out in that. You know, they broke the world transfer record for him, and then Real Madrid were like, oh, let's get another new shiny toy. And they brought Cristiano Ronaldo in and kind of stole his thunder a little bit, and injuries and all that type of stuff as well.
And he also didn't really fit into that Brazil squad. You know, you had that Rivaldo, Ronaldo, Ronaldinho as your front 3, and they always like to play kind of more defensive guys behind them to let them 3 just be able to do what they want.
And it's important to remember that he wasn't going to leave AC Milan. He had to because of financial issues. Because
Okay, I didn't know that.
they originally were going to sell him to Manchester City for 100 million. Do you remember that? There was
I remember
like
that, yeah.
big kind of like him on the balcony saying he's not going. And then by the time that the summer came around, AC Milan were like, we really need you because Real Madrid are offering a world record fee here and we actually really need that. Because that was when they were owned by the fucking nutter that was in charge of Italy at the time.
Oh, Berlusconi. yeah.
So yeah, but he was. I think the difference maybe between the 06-07 United team that like faced them, obviously they didn't have Tevez and there was a few other signings that came in, but I think maybe that team was kind of on the rise, but maybe not quite ready to take on Europe yet.
Yep.
Whereas the year after it was, so I think it would be a good game because Milan are experienced. All the Italian teams aren't they?
They're always built on a solid defensive foundation as well. You find that with any Italian team, they're just good at the back. It would have been an interesting game, that full strength against each other. Milan, obviously, they won in 03 and 07, runners up in 05, and in the years separating, they were semi-finalists in both years. So
I think they won at Old Trafford as well, didn't they, against Juventus on penalties?
They did, yeah. They also won against basically the return game against Liverpool. Kind of like the revenge for
the rematch.
05.
Inzaghi scored both, didn't he?
Yep. Yeah. I also, with 05, you look at the strength of the teams and it's like Liverpool were lucky to get to that final. You know,
But like here, they achieved something, and you know, I don't say this, you know, gladly, but like that's one of the best Champions League finals of all time, innit? Because they were literally in shit creek. That was like the last team you want. Like don't want to be 3-0 down to any team, but the last team you want to give a 3-0 head start is them.
Yeah.
And then they fucking battled back in Jersey Dudek doing all that weird shit on the line and that and the penalties and stuff. So yeah, fair play to them.
It's no crack inside. Right. What time we got now?
We've got about 10 minutes till we hit an hour, but then we've got like a 10-minute kind of.
I'm going to go for your 1 to 11 now, Ryan.
Awesome.
I'm going to break it down in a few different parts because I think there's a couple of players we can group together. But I'm going to start off with goalie. Buffon, just retired this year, 45 years old. I think 1,200 games in football, 176 caps for Italy. Best goalkeeper of all time.
Iconic goalkeeper.
Yeah.
It's a shame that he never got to win the Champions League. That's probably the only blemish. But I kind of came into football when Italian football was like still the shit.
Yeah.
I would argue it was still the shit until probably 08, 09, where Barcelona, Real Madrid and the Premier League teams were kind of taking...
No thanks to Juventus.
Well, exactly. But then again, if you think of like the likes of him and Del Piero stood by them when they were playing in Serie B for that season before they got back up, where everyone else jumps ship like Zlatan and Patrick Vieira and whoever else had, you know, Mary Poppins that on out of there. So
is there anyone that compares to him?
No.
Nah.
No. Like you just can't. The longevity.
Yeah.
He's like the goalkeeping Maldini. Do you know what I mean? Like he's just played over so many generations. And if you ask anyone, probably still young people to this day about a goalkeeper, it's probably the first name that comes up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Because there was only really the only comparison you could really get back in the day was Casillas at the time. But Casillas went and kind of ruined his own career by going to Porto and not doing much.
But then again, that was another... I mean, that's why I dislike Real Madrid so much. Is like they
booted him out the door. Yeah.
Didn't even unfollowed him on Twitter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But that's what they do. They buy players and then spit them out. You know what I mean?
Spit them out, yeah. The next two, I'm going to group them in together. Cafu and Roberto Carlos.
Oh, yes.
Like... That's unreal.
It's iconic, isn't it? Like,
yeah.
You can tell there's a big Brazilian theme to my side because that Brazilian 0-2 World Cup side,
unbelievable,
is one of the best teams I've ever seen.
The best football of all time.
Yeah. And do you know what's great about Brazilians? And they're still, to this day, most of them, they bring so much sauce.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? They're all like pretty mental. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's why that team didn't go on and win 3 World Cups or anything, because they were all doing like mental stuff outside. Like, one of the players that you'll bring up later down the line would have been the greatest of all time if he just wasn't so undisciplined and doing so much stupid shit outside, you know? But high energy, we're good going back, we're good going forward. Roberto Carlos, obviously the iconic free kick run up.
Yep. He actually, like, not a lot of people realize he missed 80% of his free kicks he hit, and you get one good one now and again, and that's all you would see for the next season.
Yeah.
The one in the Toulon tournament in '97, the pre-World Cup tournament, is obviously world famous because of the swearing. Have you seen the ball boy in that?
Yeah.
the ball boy thinks the ball's coming from, and it just flies in the back of the net. Okay, good choice. Next two, I'm going to group your two centre backs, Vidic and Ferdinand. Probably, in my opinion, the scariest two centre backs in Premier League history as a pairing.
Complemented each other so well.
Yeah.
Like you had Vidic. I remember, I'm not really a fan of him as a pundit, but Graham Souness said it best one time, saying that Vidic would put his head where others wouldn't put their feet.
Yeah, it's true.
Just an absolute destroyer. And then Rio kind of complemented that because he was technically good. He had that recovery pace that if Vidic went to crash into someone, that he would be there to cover. Colossal in that three-peat kind of era in the 07, 09 kind of
the only
time.
Centre back I'd argue better than one of them two in Premier League history is maybe Sol Campbell. Just because Sol Campbell was such a unit and just unique.
Do you know who I think would have competed for that kind of top position had he not left? Hadn't Ferguson hadn't punted him out? Jaap Stam.
Yeah,
because he was colossal.
Absolutely.
And he actually says it in his book, because I read Ferguson's book a few years ago. He was like, that's the one regret I have.
Yep.
Is getting rid of him too early and selling. I think he went to Lazio, didn't he? And then
Lazio
Milan.
and then Milan afterwards. Yeah, we kind of take it back. He was in that Milan team. It just goes to show what he went on to do. I'm surprised. Obviously, we've got one more, but I'm surprised you've only had 3 United players in your 11.
Yeah.
Was there potential for any more?
In terms, because obviously it's not just like your best 11, is it? It's your favourite. So like, if
I will make a point at people. It's not the best 11 you've ever seen. It's just your personal choice of your favourite players. You could give me 10 defenders if you want. You know, like it's good either way. Yeah, 3 United players at 11.
Yeah, the midfield was really hard. I actually changed it like 4 or 5 times.
Was there ever like a thought about, like we mentioned before, Giggs or Beckham or any players like that, or is that just kind of just before your time?
No, I was going to put Beckham in there simply because I was thinking the way that my team's lined up is kind of something that's going to hold possession a lot of the time. But then I was like, this is not what I'm trying to do here. I'm not actually trying to put a team down that's going to win. I'm putting a team down that are my favourite players. So I was going to have Beckham in there, but spoilers, there's no Messi. But that's not because I don't think he's not the GOAT or anything. I just the choice that I've made, I'll give him a reason for it at the time.
Absolutely.
Because I'm all about, like, not just moments, but like, I guess I would say about my side, barring a few, that they all had quite peaks of like a couple years and then maybe dropped off. But in those peaks, they were just like hitting unreal levels of performance, where obviously Messi and Ronaldo have done that over 10, 15 years, but that's Messi and Ronaldo, in it. Like, they're in a league of their own. But yeah, I suppose if I was to have some thoughts on United players in there, if he wasn't such a bam, I would have had Giggs in there. But if I was to put someone in from like the current side, I'd probably go with like a Bruno Fernandes.
Yeah.
I think he's awesome. Like, I know like he gets a lot of shit because he throws his arms about in there, but for me that just shows that he actually like cares.
Yeah.
Which is like a massive problem at United for some players.
People not caring enough. Yeah.
And I think he's like heavily underrated. If he wasn't having to feed Anthony Martial, if he was like feeding a Harry Kane or something, I think he'd be
feeding
right.
a horse.
Yeah.
A carrot.
Yeah. Another win for the bad guy. But like, if he was like had Harry Kane in front of him, he'd be right up there with Kevin De Bruyne in terms of assists and stuff like that. And
yeah.
It's funny though, because I've got a mate that whenever we're watching United games digs out Bruno Fernandes, like, because what he does do is he takes risks all the time, which I appreciate, right? Especially as he's a number 10. And he'll be like, Bruno's got to do better there, and without fail, within like 5 minutes of him like saying, oh, he's got to be taken off, or he's got to be dropped, scores and assists, egg over his face constantly, mate. So yeah, and the first like season and a half or 2 seasons, like the amount of times that he was literally that side, he was literally, I think it was something ridiculous, and the amount of games he plays as well. Do you know he's never missed a game through injury in his pro career?
That's mad. Yeah.
And during the pandemic, this is over for Sporting Lisbon, Portugal and United, he was, for 2.5 years, he was averaging a game every 4 days.
that's consistency. You know, that's how you're going to get better. It's that's unreal. I didn't realize that. That's
Because when United played Tottenham at the end of last season, he'd fucked his ankle against Brighton in the FA Cup semi-final, and the physio was like, "Oh, it's okay. You know, they'll be ready in a couple of weeks." And he's like, "Well, better be ready by Thursday because I'm playing." And then he played, and he had like an amazing game. And then Ten Hag was in the press conference after saying, "This is the example," and it is.
aye.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Especially when you're getting paid that amount of money, like you got,
pay that amount of money and still getting beaten, things like that.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
need players like that to step up. It's too true. Your next player is probably one of my favourite players of all time, Andrea Pirlo.
yeah.
Like a fine wine. Age, there was no issue to this man. I think, personally, when I look back, one of his greatest performances I've seen was that whole Euros where he just basically dragged Italy through. It was him and Balotelli and a bunch of nobodies.
Yeah.
You know, and
He played for all AC Milan, Inter, and Juve as well.
Unique. Why is he one of your favourite players?
Just a Rolls Royce of a player.
Yeah.
Like, you know, that I know the defensive midfielder, sometimes people are like, oh, it has to be a destroyer and that, but I'm a fan of the deep line playmaker, Regista. And if you look at like how many players he made look better, like that Juventus side under Conte, that's how Paul Pogba ended up being classed in like the top 10 midfielders of the world, you know, him and Marchisio. And he was just so colossal over a long period of time. Again, the Italians, right? Like he started off early 2000s. He went all the way up until 2015.
He got binned as well by, it was either Inter or AC, and the other one picked them up.
Yeah.
And like, to me, as you say, you look at like players and you think, oh, I need a destroyer in there. With him in your team, you didn't really need that. He could do that with grace, and still pick up a ball and fire a ball 60 yards into a boy's feet. No issues.
I can never remember him misplacing a pass.
And he's got some free kick on him as well. A guy can hit a ball like. Am I right in thinking he also penanked a penalty against Joe Hart? So, like, I like Joe Hart these days, but at the time that was beautiful. You've got an AC Milan midfield three. So is that playing in like Pirlo as the deep and then the other two as the runners?
So this is where, like I was saying, I was coming to kind of like a bit of a moral dilemma, because I was going to have Zidane in there for that goal in the Champions League final, and just because he was such a boss. But then I was like, I guess I'm going to play like this kind of high pressing 2 number 10s.
Yeah. Which are, by the way, Kaká and Ronaldinho.
Doesn't get much better, does it?
No.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm thinking I need creativity, because like the point of this team is it can't lose the ball.
Yeah.
Because if it does, we're humped. But just unreal. Do you know what I mean? Like Ronaldinho was like that, you know, just that inevitable, had so much like kind of markability behind him. Like everyone wanted to be Ronaldinho. The boots were marketed after him. He always had the iconic celebrations, and he was a night.
Even the hair. I think the hair was one of them, because he just had this unique look about him, and he looked Brazilian.
Yeah.
You know, he looked like he grew up on a beach playing football.
The goal against Chelsea as well. Do you remember that at Stamford Bridge? Just
even the performance against Chelsea that night was unbelievable. I've got a lot of time for Ronaldinho. Probably one of my favourite players ever, and
Kaká, a constant in that AC Milan side. So.
And Ballon d'Or winner, I'm right in thinking Kaká?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it went Ronaldinho, Kaká, Cristiano Ronaldo, Messi.
Yeah. So, like, you're in good company there. It's not... And then before that, I'm pretty sure it was Cannavaro, 2006. Yes. And we spoke about that recently. That was the last defender to win it.
With it, yeah.
Front three. Front three. So, like, let's go for who you playing left and who you playing right.
So, I've went for Cristiano Ronaldo.
Yeah.
My reasoning for that is, do you know what, mate? I was actually going to have my right winger on the left and have Messi on the right wing. And then I seen in a Facebook post, I guess the algorithm was reading my mind or whatever, of Ronaldo's goal contributions for Real Madrid from the era of 2011 and 2018. And it is fucking just what?
Yeah. It's insane.
Like, obviously, I've got a bit of heat against him because of the way that he acted recently, but in terms of watching him in his prime, which I would say was at Real Madrid, his prime wasn't at Man United.
No,
Real Madrid got the best years out of him.
Definitely.
Like, he was their top goal scorer within 4 years, won all that Champions Leagues. Just inevitable, mate.
Keeping up with Messi as well. Like,
yeah,
it was like
those two made each other better.
one would go and score a hat trick, and the other one would go score 3 or 4.
And they would score like 2 in a week.
Yeah.
And they would get 70 goals a season, which I don't care if it's La Liga or not. It's out this world.
Yep.
So I've got him there.
Who out of at the time, because we've obviously we're going to discuss in a minute. You've got Gareth Bale on your side. Out of at the time we had Messi, Suarez, Neymar, and we had Benzema, Bale, and Ronaldo. What would you say was a better front three? Because that was a huge debate at the time.
Yeah. I think in terms of mobility, creativity, and fitting for what Barcelona did, it would be Messi, Neymar, and Suarez. But in terms of how the other one, I think got as much praise, but for 2 over the 3.
Yes.
I think when they left, Benzema showed the actual true quality, because everyone's like, oh, Benzema's like,
yeah.
But look at him now. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like the years that he had after that, before he's obviously went and took the bag in Saudi. I think they're both as good as each other. I think it depends on what you like better. Do you like direct runners in behind with that kind of false 9, or do you like people that are going to beat people playing intricate areas?
Yep.
So yeah, it was cool because the 2-3s differentiated so much. The wingers in Neymar and Messi were good in tight areas and beat people and take people on, and Suarez would run in behind and be a nightmare to play against. Where Ronaldo and Bale were the running in behind, and Benzema would drop deep. It was more of like that 9.5 type striker.
I agree.
But I couldn't really pick one because they were both good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But they both had their strengths and I guess weaknesses, I suppose, depending on what you like.
Okay. Bale, let's talk about it. Let's talk about that Champions League final, because I think, to me, Bale's criminally underrated for what he done at Real Madrid. You look at the amount that he won while he was there, and I think that Champions League overhead kick defines his whole career.
He won Real Madrid 2 finals.
Yeah.
He scored the goal that, I know they ended up beating Atletico Madrid 4-1 in extra time, but he scored that goal to get them in front.
Yeah.
And
then he came off the bench as
Yeah.
well to do that. As people forget that he didn't start that game. And
But this is what like Real Madrid do. Like Di Maria played a magic game that game, and then they punted him that summer. And then Bale, for like the last couple of Champions Leagues, they weren't even playing him.
Yeah.
But for me, the main reason I've got him on here is that season he had at Tottenham before he left to go to Real Madrid.
Yeah.
Where he was just, I don't know if I think the video's on YouTube, but he scored like 23, 25 Premier League goals, and every single one of them is a banger. And just out of these world goals. I like people that are athletic.
Mark Bartra.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just think that defines the kind of player that Bale was.
Oh, of course. Like he was a cross-country runner, I believe, in school.
Yep.
And obviously started off as a left-back, didn't he? Another player that was meant
Do you
to
remember his performance against Inter Milan for Spurs?
retired Maicon.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why I was going to put him on the left to begin with, because I was thinking of that Gareth Bale. I was like, I'll have Messi on the right, and then that Ronaldo one just kind of swayed me in the end. But
it's some player.
To clarify before I get hate, I still think Messi's the GOAT over Ronaldo now. Like, I'm not.
And then, what a player to finish off on, R9. The greatest striker of all time.
Would have been the greatest player of all time if he was disciplined off the field.
And injury-free, I think. Yeah.
If he wasn't getting up to questionable things off the field and, had his diet in check, and I know... I want to speak. I used to be 400 pounds, but I'm not a professional football player. But yeah, had all that in check. Didn't move about so much as well. If he had actually managed to settle at a club, because obviously his best years at club football, I would say, were Barcelona in the 90s, PSV, Inter Milan, and then when
his Brazil years as well.
Of course.
I think he played his best football for Brazil.
Yeah, 100%.
He also had a little golden period when Beckham was at Real
Madrid, the Galacticos.
Yeah.
It's weird how he kind of went in a reverse way around, didn't he? Because he went PSV, Barcelona, Inter, and then he went Real Madrid, AC Milan.
Yeah, went back the way almost.
Yeah.
But as you say, he was doing what Haaland and Mbappe are doing now, but I always look at the players they play against. Mbappe and Haaland don't play against half the defences. This guy used to play against defences of Desai, Thuram, Nesta, Cannavaro, Maldini, and the guy was dominating them. And that's greatest of all time players. No offence to anyone, but he's not doing it against a Lewis Dunk, is he? There's levels to that.
Good player, Lewis Dunk, though. In all
Good
fairness.
player, yeah. No, better player than I'll ever be. But he also went to World Cups. 2002 World Cup, probably his best World Cup, and that's not even including if final aside. He had some World Cup in '98 as well. Unbelievable. 2006, he kind of died off a little bit by then, but that golden period from about 96, 97 to 2004, 2005, best player in the world.
Yeah.
It was the kind of player, and the way I always used to judge it as a kid was, I always used to pick the team on FIFA who had the best player, and I always used to be either Inter Milan or Real Madrid because they had Ronaldo. You know, that's the way you used to go by, or you used to be, because Beckham was at Man United, you would go Man United. So final run through: Buffon, Cafu, Ferdinand, Carlos, Pirlo, Kaká, Ronaldinho, Bale, R9, Ronaldo. Does that team win the Champions League these days? Or is that team too...
It wins the Champions League, it wins X Factor, it wins everything in its fucking stride, mate. Do you know what would be cool actually going forward for this? Because obviously I'm like producing the show and everything. We should get like a tally, right? And then like every couple of episodes we can like have like a table of who we think's team like we prefer the best. I mean, obviously I'm biased, but I'll take my hat out of the equation for mine. But
I wish I had a simulator.
Yeah. But the thing about, just to end off on R9 there, the best moment I remember of him was when he scored the perfect hat-trick at Old Trafford in that Champions League quarter-final.
That was when they were playing in black Real Madrid kit. I remember that, mate. Yeah. That's the kind of performances. I think he got applauded by United fans that night as well, didn't he? I'm going to close off on one question. Thank you for coming on. This has been really enjoyable.
Thank you for having me. I was a little bit nervous about being a guest today.
No, it's different, but
it's good to see you doing your own thing, though, man. Like, it's
thank you.
Like, obviously, like we've been recording like your intros and stuff beforehand, and like I'm saying, like you don't get to where you want to be on the first episode. You know what I mean? So it's just a building process, but it's good. The start is here. This
podcast will be uniquely different in 12 months' time. It's just going to take on leaps and bounds and level up, as they say. Okay, so my final question for you, Ryan, is if you had to pick one player to put away a penalty, who would it be?
Oh, that question overlaps something, doesn't it? If you get the joke there. So a penalty to save my life.
Yeah, penalty to save your life. Who's taking that penalty?
Do you know who it's going to be? And I remember saying this to a mate years ago, right? Because I remember but I didn't joke, I was meaning it. It would be Mario Balotelli.
That's a good answer.
And do you know why, right? Obviously because he never really missed penalties. I can't remember when that he missed. But the reason that he never missed is because he didn't care if he did.
Yeah. I like that. That's a good answer, mate. Thank you. Yeah. Balotelli. I can guarantee that's the only Balotelli.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, I fucking just like him in every other way as a football player, but his penalty taking was
unreal.
Aye.
Okay, cheers. Thanks for coming on, mate.